If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror, we'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Hello, my name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm one of the three hosts of Almost Major, a film podcast dissecting many major indie studios and the films they release. Every week, myself, Charlie Nash, and Bryden Doyle discuss overlooked, forgotten, or bona fide classic indie films via studio-specific miniseries. We've previously covered numerous films from Artisan Entertainment, Lionsgate Films, and New Line Cinema. Titles including The Blair Witch Project, American Psycho, Dogville, But I'm a Cheerleader, Saw, Requiem for a Dream, and Ringmaster, you know, the Jerry Springer film. Anyways, we have a fun time every week and we hope you will join us. Subscribe to Almost Major wherever you get your podcasts. Now proudly a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Weirding Way Media.
Right, Mr. Walters?
You see that guy over there? Now, he's an actor. The guy on the phone, he's a prize fighter. Me, I'm a cab driver. I'm the only cab driver in this place.
Hello, and welcome to Goodnight, Mr. Walters, a taxi podcast. I'm your co-host, HP, and with me is my co-host, Father Malone.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Taxi.
We're going to start off with a little bit of a potted history of Taxi before we dive into the episode.
What's a potted history? What does that mean?
Potted history, that is basically just a compact history of the show.
Is it from potting soil?
I don't know what it's from. I heard it from a podcast about record producers.
Oh.
It was an English podcast, so maybe it's an English expression that I've grown to appreciate. But this is as I said, this is a small bit of history around Taxi, if you will, for all of you American listeners out there, as opposed to you English listeners who know what a potted history is. Taxi ran on ABC from 1978 to 1982. It was on Thursdays, 9:30 to 10 p.m. It famously then switched networks to run on NBC from 1982 to 83. And we'll get into that a little bit more as the podcast episodes go on. It was nominated for 31 Emmys. It won 18, including 3 for Outstanding Comedy Series.
18.
18, that's a lot. 3.
That's a fucking lot for 5 years of comedy, man.
We'll get into this, but this is this is a bananas cast. It's just one of those things where all the stars kind of lined up for them. And this is largely the cast that we're going to follow for the next, 5 seasons or what have you.
How many episodes is that?
How many episodes did you ask? It is 114 episodes over that time span.
114. Hear that, everyone? So buckle up.
So they reached that. I think it's 100 episodes to get syndication, which explains why this show keeps popping up and over the years on various, like Nick at Night. That was probably the place where I rediscovered it. And we'll talk a little bit about that. It was created by James L. Brooks, Stan Daniels, David Davis, and Ed Weinberger.
Ed period Weinberger.
That period is nothing but an affectation. There's no real meaning behind it. I often wondered that.
When I look at it, it makes me think there was somebody else in the Writers Guild. And he just went, okay, well, I'm Ed period. Okay.
That's actually, yeah, like Fisher Stevens was actually Stephen Fisher, but he had to flip his name.
Yeah, Michael Keaton is actually Michael Douglas.
You know what? I never knew that.
Yeah.
I knew Ed Weinberger mainly because I used to see his name in the credits for The Cosby Show, which I think is one of his many claims to fame.
Oh, right.
Now, a lot of these guys got their start on the Mary Tyler Moore Show, which is kind of the breeding ground for a lot of these sitcoms and really set the tone for sitcoms for years into the future.
Without doubt.
You can basically plot a line from Mary Tyler Moore, which runs through Taxi, eventually making its way to other shows like Cheers and The Cosby Show, like I just mentioned, and even feature films like Terms of Endearment and As Good as It Gets. So this is where we're talking, a lot of talent behind the scenes before we even get to the actors and the characters they play. So the show, if for those who are uninitiated, it follows a group of night shift cabbies through the ups and downs of their lives in and out of the garage. You have, Alex Rieger. He's the pragmatic cabbie lifer. There's Bobby Wheeler, the aspiring actor. Tony Banta, who's the washed up middleweight boxer. There's Elaine Nardo. She's the gorgeous single mom with dreams of working in an art gallery. Jim Ignatowski, who is the 60s drug casualty, whose burnout nature masks a surprising depth. Laka Gravis, he's the sweet-natured mechanic from an undisclosed European country. We never actually learn the name of the country he's from.
Is that right?
This is true.
Huh.
Not that I recall.
I thought we did at some point, but maybe not.
You learn a lot of the verbiage and the customs around the country, but
he always just said my country.
Right. Or in my country, he would say, not to get all Yakov Smirnoff.
Don't Yakov Smirnoff. Yeah, this is as far from that as possible. This is the real deal.
John Burns, who's the affable, slightly lunk-headed New York transplant. And to my mind, he's the obvious precursor to Woody Boyd from Cheers.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah.
And presiding over all of it is who?
Louis De Palma. Oh boy, Louis De Palma. You know what's funny? HP, you're reading this list of characters, and each one is like more classic than the last. You're like, oh yeah, he's a great character. And like, oh, and Reverend Jim. Oh my God, yeah. Oh right, and Danny DeVito, like killing it every scene. Yeah,
it's amazing. I mean, to me, this is just an incredibly stacked cast, all perfectly suited to the characters they play. Very well cast. Obviously, the outlier in this whole list of characters and actors is unfortunately John Burns, we'll see later on. Really, the writers admitted later they couldn't really find a place for him.
No, because you know what? That character, we'll talk about it, I guess. But that character is supposed to be like the proxy for the audience.
Yeah.
None of those guys were John Byrne, those writers. You know what I mean? Like they couldn't identify with the guy that they were using for the audience to identify with. So just make the show.
I found his, and it's a shame because by all accounts, the actor who played him, Randall Carver, was a very sweet guy, good actor, but the writers admitted that they just couldn't find a way to situate him within that cast. And like I said, don't get too attached to him because he's not going to be around for too long, but such is life.
Nice guy. Go home and play with your kids.
Yeah, don't come down to the garage because there's no place for you. With hindsight, to me it's obvious to see the parallels between this show and Cheers. Obviously, Cheers and Taxi are about really a group of misfits kind of making a family for themselves in an unusual setting. In Taxi, it's the garage, and obviously Cheers, it's the bar. Do you see any other beyond that? Have you seen anything within the show that kind of seems like a foreshadowing of what we would come to see in Cheers, or even the Cosby Show for that matter?
As far as like direct sort of pullovers, no. I mean, obviously the Woody character is the one that comes to mind. Also, Coach, I guess.
Pantuso, Ernie Pantuso.
Ernie Pantuso kind of slightly resembles Alex Rieger in that that's his job and he's not looking to do anything else and he doesn't really care.
Yeah.
I suppose, but even that feels like a reach to me. Like, I think Cheers is like sort of whole cloth its own thing. But yeah, I mean, I know the Charles brothers were involved from the get-go, right? They were producers from the show from the pilot, right?
Yeah, and Jim Burrows, who we'll talk about, was one of the marquee directors of Taxi, and he went on to do a lot of work with Cheers as well. In fact, you could argue that he's more well known for Cheers than he was for Taxi. But for me, because I've given this probably way too much thought. And to me, I see more parallels. To me, Rieger is much more the foreshadow of what would become Sam Malone, because Rieger, when you think about it, and Sam to a degree, is really the star around which all the other characters revolve themselves, right?
Yeah.
They're both kind of the stable, constant presence within the garage or in the bar. And they've both kind of made their peace with who they are and
True.
what they're doing in life. Rieger is, as we'll see, like I said, he's the cabbie lifer. He has no illusions about who he is or where he's going in life.
Yeah. I'll agree with you that as a central character, they are similar, but as actual characters, they couldn't be further afield. I mean,
correct. I'm not suggesting that these two are matched up as far as the types of characters they are, because obviously Sam Malone is a lady killer, who was a famous athlete who, you know, had a sort of fall from grace. He was an alcoholic, and he's made a success for himself with the bar.
Let's face it, like Rieger is the sensitive 70s guy that was popular at that moment. And then Sam is a little more 80s, ain't he?
He is. But like I said, if we're looking at these characters and these situations in the abstract.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I agree. Like the Sam Malone's washed up nature and knowing that he's now a bartender and he's cool with that is very in tune with Alex Rieger just going, I'm a cabbie. Like, I don't have a pretension to anything else. Like, this is it. I've been a cabbie. When all these people are gone, I'm still going to be a cabbie. So I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a poignancy to that admission, which we hear in the very first episode, as we'll see. But I can also, not to get too heavy into this, but I can also, it's easy for me to draw a parallel at least in the abstract, between Louis De Palma and Carla Tortelli. They're both kind of these very abrasive, seemingly negative characters that do, you know, as we'll see with Louis especially, he masks a surprising amount of pain. And in some ways, not that Carla is a desperate person, but there is a sweetness that they occasionally allow to show.
Yeah.
And we'll see that with Louis. I mean, make no mistake, Louis is despicable, and he does some really bad things in the course of this show.
Oh, he's horrible. But as far as the sort of pugilistic nature of that character, they are very much alike. Yeah, it's just that. But Carla Tortelli is very sweet. There is, I will say, there is one other character, and it's not in this episode. It's later on in the season, so I don't want to be a spoiler kind of a guy, but there's a character who shows up who is very much Nick Tortelli from Cheers on Taxi. I will get to it when we get to it, but there's a character while I was watching and I was like, this character's not working. The actor isn't right. And I was like, oh, it's because it's supposed to be what's his name on Cheers. So anyway.
So that's basically what we're dealing with here. These are all the characters and their main sort of personality traits. Now, what I want to get into a little bit is this show ran from 78 to 83, essentially. We would have been about 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old when this was on TV. And I remember it being on television. I want to get into some of our childhood impressions of it, because I think we can agree both of us really embraced the show as adults. Eventually, when it was on in its original form, a lot of it was just over our heads. But for me, my childhood impressions of the show, I remember hearing the theme song when I was a kid meant that it was basically time for bed, because it was at 9:30. Got to get to bed, get ready for school the next day.
Yeah.
But that, even now, when I hear that, there's something very adult, and the forbidden isn't really the word, but there was something about hearing that theme and knowing, okay, it's time for bed, but there's this other world that goes on after I go to sleep that this show is kind of a part of in a funny way.
Let me piggyback on your memory of the theme song as a young person, because I was already a half hour into my bedtime, but would always hear the Taxi theme, which meant that I was now past the point of no return. Like there, you go when you're put to bed, there seems to be a time where you think you might be able to get up and get out of it. But once the Taxi theme was going, I was like, oh, well, no one's coming to save me. Like,
that's right.
And the theme itself is rather haunting and melancholic. So For years and years, I would hear that song and it would just bum me out. I appreciate what a great tune it is now, but like early childhood into early adulthood, maybe like, oh my God, Angela, Jesus.
Yeah, no, and you're not wrong about the theme. I remember I was talking to someone about Taxi fairly recently, and they were saying how like depressing they found the theme, and I think part of that is because
they're not wrong.
Well, I don't find it depressing. I think I'm a big fan of Bob James, and we'll talk about him in a moment, but I just always found it was kind of urban, kind of hip, a little bit of a poignant feel, but I'm not sure how much of that is the music and how much of that is my associating it with the stories.
Okay, here's the thing though.
The characters.
The beginning part of the song, the bit, play it right now.
Yeah.
What is that instrument?
I think I could be wrong, but it feels like that's a flute.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the thing. When people are saying this is like this mournful, sad, depressing thing, they're referring to the flute, not the funky part in the middle, which is great. Like if you cut the beginning and the end off of this tune, no one could ever mistake it for sadness. It's the sound of like a lonely person on a hill. Like I don't know.
That sort of mournful flute, I can see that.
Yeah, man.
So speaking of the music, Bob James is responsible for all of the music in this.
And for so much more.
And for a lot. He's a smooth jazz composer, arranger, who had a career already before Taxi, but obviously Taxi increased his visibility and really kind of cemented his place in the pantheon. The theme for the show is actually, you had already said the word, it's called Angela. And this music was originally intended for the Blind Date episode later on this season. The original choice for the theme was a song called Touchdown. They needed to actually cut it in to the credits, and the Angela theme seemed to work so much better for them that's what they went with. So what was intended to be the theme of a character in a particular episode became the actual theme to the show. To me, it sounds more like what you would see as an interstitial during the show. You know how they cut to like a shot of the garage, and it's like this sort of peppy, whatever. Yeah. And then it goes in, and then there's Louis, yelling at somebody. For the listeners, here is a little bit of Touchdown. Okay, we're back. About Bob James. According to whosampled.com, he has 1,625 samples to his credit, 78 covers, and 3 remixes. Yeah, he's very, very heavily sampled.
I knew he was popular in the hip hop community. I just didn't know he was that popular.
It's actually surprising because when you think of popular sample artists, you're thinking of James Brown, you're thinking of like Parliament Funkadelic. These are all like the mainstays, but there's no getting around the idea. It's documented on the site that he was very heavily sampled. In fact, the hip hop outfit Souls of Mischief recorded a song called Cab Fare. It remains the greatest exponent of sampling the theme to Taxi. However, it also remains unreleased due to inability to clear the samples. But I happen to have a little snippet of it. So here's a little bonus. Here's a little bit of Cab Fare by Souls of Mischief. Anyway, episode 1, Taxi episode 1, aka the pilot, called Like Father, Like Daughter.
Yes, good title. I like a pilot that actually has a title and not just pilot. It's so lazy.
This is, and it's we'll talk about this, but basically, one of the things that I really love about this is that you're getting all of the elements fully formed that would kind of create the backbone of the show for all 5 seasons.
100%. This script is economical to a fault. It's a remarkable machine that it is an entertaining half hour that introduces us to everyone, gives everyone a fair shake. Like you said, sets the template for the rest of the show and still delivers a standalone story. It's kind of remarkable.
Yeah, you could have had this episode be episode number 15 in the series or episode 25, and there would be no context setting. I mean, it still reads as a Taxi episode. The characters have all of their traits and foibles fully formed. It's fantastic.
Yeah, these writers are like working at the top of their game. I mean, like you said, most of them came from Mary Tyler Moore or other shows, whatever, like, and they know what they're doing.
Yeah, it's fabulous. So we have our first look at the opening credits.
Hey, who's driving that cab?
Thank you. That's alley-oop. Fantastic. That is actually, well, who is that? You tell me. Who's driving the cab?
It's Bantha. It's Tony Danza. Tony Danza has got 72 credits, all named Tony.
That's who, of course, makes the joke that they all called him that because he wouldn't respond to anything else. Yes, that is Tony driving the cab.
Can he do it now? I wonder. Does he now like, oh no, you have to call the character Tony. I cannot respond to anything else.
Well, it kind of became.
I'm now incapable. Thank you.
It's his steez, right? He's got to be Tony no matter what. This was B-roll footage from another episode. Now the shot, some people don't know is the shot was originally too short for the credits. So if you look carefully, there's actually a couple of slight edits.
Yeah, there's some wildly bad jump cuts.
The edits are not really artfully
once you
done,
see them, you can't unsee them. And now every time I watch it, I see it every single time. Just like you pointed out in Satellite of Love by Lou Reed. Like, oh, that's Bowie singing in the back there. And I go, oh, holy shit, it really is. And now all I hear is bong, bong, bong.
He produced it. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Anyway.
So we get our first look at the Sunshine Cab Company. Louis, the dispatcher, asks
Can
Tony.
I just say the B-roll footage in this show is fantastic. I don't know who it was, but God bless. They did some good stuff, man. That's
a good point because the show was filmed in California. It was filmed on the Paramount soundstage in California. They capture the essence of at least an imaginary version of New York because part of the reason is they cast New York actors, Judd Hirsch, Tony Danza. These are all flavoring the show with their New York essence, if you will. And to your point, the B-roll footage where it's basically usually it's like a cab driving into the garage or some snowy street where they're pulling up to pick up a fare or something. It does sell that.
Yeah, certainly.
A lot of this show takes place during the winter when it's cold. There's several episodes where there's a blizzard figures into the plot. But unbeknownst to everybody, this is a show that's being filmed in sunny California.
Yeah, man. Good on them. Like obviously it's a set and whatever, but it looks great. In fact, I was looking there's a column by the telephone sort of in the middle of the thing, right? This is a soundstage, so they had to build that column. It looks real, man. They got close-ups of that. It that looks like a cement column.
There's little signs you can see all over the place, all over the dispatcher cage, and the garage set would remain largely unchanged. What we're seeing on episode 1 is basically what the garage looks like at the end of episode 114. This is the set is what it is. The garage almost becomes its own character in the show because that's where we largely spend most of our time. There's different. They go to Mario's, the dive bar. They'll go to somebody's apartment. So it's not limited to the garage. That would become boring. Over the years, we'll see Louis knows the place so well.
Oh my God. Yeah. And his constant battle with the roach.
There's always the owner of the garage who is up those stairs in the middle of it, sort of like at this high lofty perch, if you will. Louis is above all the cabbies, literally as well as in his mind figuratively. But then you have, initially, I think it's Mr. Mackenzie owns the company, and then it becomes Mr. Ratledge, I think later.
Right.
It's like the bar in Cheers. It's this sort of comfortable environment. We know the environs, we know the boundaries of the place. We know everybody's got their own place to sit when they play poker and all this kind of stuff. It's very lived in. Louis is, when the episode starts, Louis busting Tony's chops. Tony talks about a fight that he had, and Louis' remark to him is, "What's it like having a cauliflower back?" Which I think is a great opening line for Louis. Immediately sets the scene that we're not dealing with successful people. We already know that Tony is washed up just from hearing him talk about the fight that he had the night before.
Right.
Louis putting him down conveys this impression that he's a loser, basically. We're then introduced to John Burns, who's a yokel from out of town who can't pay Alex's fare because he can't make the right change. And then we see Bobby Wheeler.
Another loser, struggling young actor.
It has to be said, as much as they might describe what a good actor he is in the context of the show, he's really hammy. And I think that's part of the character and this is maybe why he's still a struggling actor and he never really truly makes it, is he's a ham. The thing that I alluded to earlier in the episode that I found, I saw this and I can't unsee it after watching the show. Jeff Conaway comes in and he's talking to Alex about he's trying out for Equus. Yeah. And Jeff Conaway, if you watch the episode back, he's unusually for the character, he's just wearing a shirt. Normally the character Bobby wears like his leather jacket through the whole thing. Yeah. Jeff Conaway has the worst pit stains through this episode. Like, if you watch it again, this is not a character choice. This is not something deliberate. This conveys to me how nervous Jeff Conaway was in this first pilot episode. It's so distracting and it's so gross. So what happens is John discovers he has to call somebody to arrange to where he's going to stay in New York. And he tries to use the payphone. He discovers that the payphone is broken, so they can call anywhere for free. This immediately kind of causes commotion in the garage. Everybody lines up to use the phone, and they've all got their reason why they want to use the phone. Bobby calls the National Theatre of London to try to speak to Sir Laurence Olivier. Olivier is in the middle of a curtain call when he calls. So Bobby, in a funny little bit, basically says, all I want to tell him is, and then he just applauds. Yeah. And it's like kind of a nice moment.
It's pretty good, actually. It's this conceit that there's a telephone that you can use suddenly. And like, it should be noted, that's a big deal in 1978. It was a big deal all through when we were growing up. Like, calling people cost money. Yeah. Every call. And like, to get a payphone that was messed up and you could just use it, holy God. And they do exactly what everyone wants to do, which is call as far as you possibly can for like no good reason at all.
This is a pre-cell phone time, and this is, you're right, this would be a big deal.
A long distance call in the United States was really expensive, and to make one overseas, holy God. When Banta calls Bangkok and he's like, okay, I'm putting in the money in now, right? And he's putting in like a nickel, I think, and I'm like, put in a quarter, it's going to be quicker. Like, you're going to be there a while pumping that thing and back into the machine.
It's so true that for the modern watcher, it might seem like kind of silly because why wouldn't I just pick up my cell phone? But this is a big deal. And not only that, but as we've established, these are cab drivers. These aren't people with a lot of money.
None of one wants to be there. No one wants to be a cabbie. They're all poor, man. They're making do. Like, free phone. Yay.
It's huge. So like I said, they all line up. As you said, Tony calls a prostitute that he met when he was stationed in Thailand. Which is also a funny bit. And then we meet Elaine Nardo. She comes in. Louis doesn't know. He doesn't realize that she's a cabbie and it's her first day. So he kind of sweet talks her. And then when he realizes who it is, he basically just says, well, why are you wasting my time? Get over there and I'll call you when I need you. So she gives lip back to him. We learn a little more about how she's really no nonsense and she won't take any guff from him, let alone anybody else. So it's her first day, as I said, as a cab driver.
Nardo. What does she do?
She is working part-time at an art gallery.
Right.
These are all aspirational characters, with the exception of one. So she sits down and starts talking to Alex, and Alex delivers this really kind of like the thesis of the character of Alex, how this person's an actor. And because she says to him, like, oh, don't worry, I'm only here part-time. Like, I'm not going to be here a long time. And he says, oh yeah, everybody's here part-time. That guy's an actor. That guy's a prize fighter, and that's a hairdresser. And he says, and this is the important bit, he says, I'm the only cab driver here. Basically, he's the only one who understands who he is. It says a lot about the character's lack of motivation, about his pragmatism about his really no nonsense way of looking at life. He's not sitting there saying, oh, I can't wait till I get out of being a cab driver. I want to be a writer. I want to be a this.
Right.
Which is not to say that we don't see some glimmers in other episodes of his unfulfilled passions and things he wanted to do in life. But ultimately,
oh boy, don't we?
Ultimately, he is a cab driver, and he's under no illusion that he's anything else.
Yeah, there's something noble in that.
Yeah.
I've known people who are in that exact sort of scenario, who were doing something that they loved, and everyone around them was just there to make a quick buck and then like move along in their career, and it burned them. It's good to have him as our central character. That sort of character would be good no matter what situational comedy we were plugging him into. What Rieger has on most other sitcom leads is that they stuck Judd Hirsch in there. And not only that, but like they've made him a fully formed, interesting as all the crazy characters. Like ordinarily, this straight man would just get lost in the shuffle, and Rieger does not.
And it's all credit due to Judd Hirsch. He really is the glue that really held the show together. It's my understanding that when he was originally offered the part of Alex, he turned it down maybe several times. And there's something to me about this begrudging attitude that he had. I don't want to do this part. There's something I think that in a funny way might inform the attitude of like, I really don't want to be here, but I'll do it because that's what I do. You know, I'm a cab driver.
I don't know much about Judd Hirsch prior to Taxi. I'm assuming he was a stage actor.
He was, and part of his ambivalence was his experience doing network television. He did a show. He was on a detective show called Del Vecchio. I don't think it ran for very long. And he was a stage actor mainly.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to dive into Del Vecchio, right? You know, as soon as we finish talking.
There's something about the grounded performance by Judd Hirsch that even when things tend to shade into the unreal and the cartoonish, maybe in some cases, he always brings it back down to earth and connects you to the show in a way.
Elegantly. He does it elegantly.
There's a reason why his credit leads the credits at the beginning of the show.
I'm wondering about that. I'm glad you brought that up. Obviously, he turns it down 3 times. He gets to say, okay, I'll do it, but my name's first. Is that ultimately? Because yes. Good. Okay, good. But like, he deserves it. Is the thing. He
deserves it.
I don't know who could have played that part like this and made me care for 5 years.
Jeff Conaway, apparently years later after he left the show, he claimed that his name was also supposed to be on the marquee at the top. And that was apparently one of the conditions that he set out. I don't know that you could make the same claim that Bobby Wheeler is the glue that holds Taxi together.
I would give no credit to Bobby. Put him at the end credits. Like, what is he thinking about? His name comes up immediately, right? He's one of the principals. There's no and
question.
I'm not diminishing his performance here on Taxi. Jeff Conaway came to a very sad end, and we all watched it happen, and it was awful. And that image has stuck in my head for the past 20 or so years. That was the Jeff Conaway in my mind when I was rewatching this. But Conaway's great, man. Like pit stains and all. He's really funny. And I've been using this word a lot lately, but earnestness, but not like sentimental. Like I think he's really, really good in the show. I think his character is actually really good in the show. I know eventually this is going to not be so great for Jeff Conaway and the cast of Taxi, but here I think he's really good, man. Like I like him. In fact, speaking of noticing things from rewatching this episode too many goddamn times, in the climax of the show, there's a scene with Rieger and his daughter in an airport. Yeah. Jeff Conaway is in the background, seated, and has to sit there and react. And he's out of focus, man. And I'm watching. Conaway is fucking killing it back there. Out of focus, not even really in the scene at all, and he's still doing it. So, anyway, that's something I noticed about Jeff Conaway.
So Alex, during this whole thing where all the cabbies are lined up, they're all encouraging Alex to use the payphone, and he's like, he kind of demurs. He doesn't really want to use it, but he does muse that he might want to call his daughter. He hasn't seen her in 15 years. We learned that he was divorced. and his wife remarried and moved to South America. She basically pressured Alex to stay away from the daughter and let the new husband adopt her, which is awful. It's just an awful thing to learn about this character. And Nardo she kind of like,
what a horrible human being you are, abandoning your daughter.
Yeah, she's aghast, and rightfully so. And this is a really sad situation,
Yeah,
regardless of his complicity in the whole situation. It's really sad for Alex that he really missed the majority of his daughter's life. He wasn't a part of it. In fact, not only was he not a part of it, his ex-wife told him essentially, stay away. For the good of our daughter, stay away.
This is a heavy pilot. Speaking to the skill of these writers, like these moments come up, they hit you heavy, and then they immediately follow it back into the comedy.
Cheers was good at that too. There was it was really a funny show, but they had a knack for mixing in
emotional moments.
We also briefly meet Latka, the garage mechanic.
Here we go, baby.
Played by Andy Kaufman.
Not Jim Carrey? I thought it was Jim Carrey.
Supposedly, and I don't know how true this is, I suspect it's probably more true than false. At least this is the way it's depicted in Man on the Moon, that Kaufman really didn't like being on the show. He found it too constricting. And it's easy for me to believe that that's the case. But I will say that he still, despite that,
it doesn't show.
It doesn't show at all, because we'll see over the course of this series, because he's featured very heavily and he has a lot to do, sometimes carrying the whole episode. And he's just tremendous. Even some of the more dramatic pieces, you would not expect someone like Kaufman to be so effective.
You know, I watched an interview with Tony Danza, specifically about Andy Kaufman, and he was saying how resentful he was at the time, because generally when they do a TV show, there is a read through on Monday, and then they block on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then there's like a rehearsal Thursday, and then they shoot Friday. And Andy Kaufman showed up for Thursday and Friday every week, right? And they had like a fake Latka for the rest of the week doing an impression of him, and then like somebody just doing the stand-in and stuff, right? Yeah. So it's easy to see why they would be resentful, but obviously it wasn't necessary, because Latka is never like that intertwined with the characters. He's always sort of on the outside. That's kind of a good thing. He didn't want to do the show. This is the only way he was going to do it. And as you said, it doesn't, as the viewer, knowing none of this wouldn't affect us at all. Like it doesn't show, you know, there doesn't seem to be any discord.
It's easy to see why the cast would dislike him in real life, because when he was hired, he had all these stipulations. As you said, he wouldn't be there for a lot of the run-throughs, and he would kind of come in late in the process. He insisted they hire a stand-in, as you said. More famously, he insisted that they hire somebody named Tony Clifton to actually appear in several episodes. Now, who is Tony Clifton, Father Malone?
Tony Clifton is a lounge entertainer, rather flamboyant, dressed in the sort of tuxedo with the frills. He wears spectacles at all times. He has a mustache and usually smoking a cigar.
I think he had a toupee also.
Really bad toupee. Kind of an attack comic in the Don Rickles school, but also styled himself a song and dance man in the Sammy Davis Jr. vein. By the way, he's terrible at all of them. He's perhaps the worst performer in history, and I don't know how he keeps getting work, but apparently it's because Andy Kaufman stipulated that he show on the show.
He insisted on hiring Tony Clifton along with him. So I think the producers saw in Kaufman like a rare talent, and they really stopped at nothing to make sure that he was on the show. And it's just in this one episode, he's on screen for maybe 3 minutes, but he makes a huge impression. He ends his bit with his famous "thank you very much," which became synonymous with the character. Now, the character grew out of his nightclub act. He used to have a bit called, I think it was just called Foreign Man or
Foreign Guy, yeah.
And it was him coming out with this ridiculous, indeterminate accent, and he would say jokes, and they were terrible jokes, and it was in line with Kaufman's confrontational humor. He would do this to the point where he would make people so uncomfortable because this character Foreign Guy would get more and more upset.
It's such a good piece, man, with the bongos at the end.
It's amazing. And it's so iconic for Andy Kaufman.
And you know what? Watching him as Latka, it made me re-examine Andy Kaufman because he is this sort of very confrontational comic. His pieces are abstract in the extreme, and you're the joke in a lot of cases. But at the same time, he plays sweeter than anybody. He's the living embodiment of both extremes. He was like the guy who really reveled in being hated, but like was so good at being sweet and lovable. It's kind of insane, man.
Yeah. If I had to compile a list of favorite Taxi episodes, I would say Latka is probably central to at least 2 or 3 of them. There's no hint as you're watching it that he resented the character or he never phoned in his performance. He's always just so sweet and really embodied the character of Latka really in a special way. And we see it from jump in this episode. We're already loving this character. It's incredible how much he does with so little time. So Alex, he finally gets the nerve up to try to call his daughter with this payphone that is for free. He finds out from his wife that his daughter Kathy is going to travel to Portugal for college, and for some reason has to fly through Miami. Unbelievably, Alex essentially steals a cab with the other cabbies and drives down to Miami International Airport.
Before that happened, they try to borrow the cab, and Louis says he's not lending cabs out anymore. And then he comes out to confront them. And this is the first time we get to see Louis De Palma in his glory, where he opens the cage door and steps out, and he's their height and then descends the stairs, and they all surround him like giants. And he's still the most menacing person on screen. It's fantastic, man. It's like watching Darth Vader emerge from the smoke.
It is a wonderful reveal because up to that point, it's not as if Danny DeVito was a household name.
Nobody knew how tall he was, man. It was this looming presence in a cage. Holy shit.
Right. And then he comes out and it's like he's, 4 foot nothing or whatever. Really kind of sets the tone for this sort of Napoleonic complex that you can see that this character is dealing with. They basically steal the cab from Louis and they drive down to Miami International Airport. I think they say it's going to be about 24 hours, like a straight shot.
Oh, by the way, on the way there, Tony reveals this, that he once had to drive all the way to Miami to 23 hours. I did it myself. Took a bunch of uppers. When the guy knocked me out, I couldn't close my eyes. Okay. I just was, I think the word is gobsmacked when I saw this show on network television from 1978. One of the leads is like, oh yeah, I took a bunch of uppers. Like, no big deal.
But you're right. That is kind of an interestingly, it's sort of a bracing little thing because it's conveyed through a voiceover.
Right, which means it might not have been the original script. It was like something they thought of on the fly. Oh, let's throw that in. The uppers story.
You could make the point that that's actually truer to what a cabbie might actually have to resort to.
100%. All those guys were on speed.
It's kind of thrown in as this voiceover as we're watching footage of the cab like driving down the highway. So they finally make it there. And there's a group milling in the waiting area. And Alex picks her out. He uses his quote unquote, paternal instincts to pick out which one is his daughter because they're all wearing school uniforms.
Yeah. But he finds her immediately, even though her back is to him.
He taps her on the shoulder and says, hey, Kathy Consuelos? She says, yes. Now, it's hard for me to get past this. And this is it's a silly point to make. But this girl was adopted at basically age 2. Spent from age 2 to, I think she's supposed to be 17 in this. So she spent 15 years in South America and there's no trace of an accent at all. She just weird. Which is, you would figure Spanish would be her native, or Portuguese rather, would be her native tongue.
Yeah. No, they instead picked the girl who's going to be in every after school special. I'm not talking about this actress specifically. I'm just saying she was like the platonic ideal of the after school special actress.
The character is played by an actress by the name of Talia Balsam. She is the daughter of Martin Balsam and Joyce Van Patten. Apparently only 2 actresses were auditioned for the role. Balsam and another relative unknown named
Rosanna Arquette.
Rosanna Arquette. Probably best known for Desperately Seeking Susan.
No, she's most known for that song Rosanna, or that other song In Your Eyes written for her, or that other song. What is the mystical quality of Rosanna Arquette where every musician just falls in love with her and then writes an awesome song? I think they made the right choice with Talia Balsam, because Rosanna Arquette, I think, probably is a better actress, but is in no way related to Judd Hirsch. And we're going to call her Consuelos on top of that, just to confuse everybody.
It's hard for me to get past the fact that she in no way seems like anybody who spent the majority of her life in Portugal.
Yeah.
But I mean, she's, you know what, she's fine. She does what she has to do and it's fine. And it's an emotional thing when she meets her father in this scene.
You're not my father.
It's awkward, and there really is an unreality to the whole setup. The fact that they essentially stole this cab.
Oh, no. That's not the unreality. That's all great. I would do that. You would do, wouldn't you? I would do that. I'd do that right now. I jump in the car and drive to Florida.
I'm not suggesting we wouldn't do it, but I would question the fact that the other 4 or 5 cabbies would go, "Hey, let's go on a trip."
Yes, it is a bit of situational comedy going on. But I like all of that. I think it's the pushing the credulity is like trying to slam their "I wasn't there for you, you weren't there for me" relationship into one thing. Although they do it very well. I mean, you know, it is the writing isn't ham-handed at all. The performances are. It just feels a little. I don't know.
It's a little contrived.
Yeah.
But having said that, Hirsch really sells the scene.
Oh, yeah, man. I believe him.
Basically, she says to him, like, "Well, you're not my father. You didn't raise me. The man who raised me is my father." And you can tell he's really hurt by those words. And he says, "You can't tell me that I'm not a father because I knew so much about you for those first 2 years." He talks about how she used to sneeze, what her favorite foods were, what have you.
Oh, yeah, he spills it like it's there. It's always on his mind. So, yeah, I mean, utterly demolishing the earlier Nardo and audience classification that this is a lacking parent. He's not at all. He's
just a man who had to make a really tough decision.
And he and cops too that it was a fine decision for him at the time. He was not unwilling to give up that responsibility at that age.
Ultimately, you're left with the impression that he really let himself off the hook by making that decision. So although it is a tough decision to make, he admits that he just knew it would be easier if he just cut it off and moved on with his life, which is sad.
And again, really heavy for a fucking pilot of a comedy.
But Alex really makes it clear that he's held tight to every moment of her first 2 years. And it's clear that he's thought about it a lot. So the episode ends. The phone is repaired and everybody's booing about it.
By the way, earlier in the episode, in fact, in the opening scene, when John is trying to make change and he's trying to calculate the tip on $4.75 and every cabbie like spills it. I mean, it's 73 cents. Right. Great moment. Really real moment.
It is. And I love in every episode, they put such a great assemblage of cabbies that are waiting for their cabs to come in.
They're characters, man. They are real human beings back there.
Let's not forget, these are the night shift cabbies, right? They're waiting for the cabs to come in from the day shift. So they're usually waiting around. But I love the texture of them in the background. John comes in at the end of the episode and announces he's gotten his hack license.
Here we go with the rube.
Finally, Louis gives out his cab assignments and we're off and running. And that is the episode. Now, let's talk a little bit about the episode. Things, good and bad points. Now, for me, I love that this show comes kind of fully formed almost in the form that it was going to take going forward. All of the essential elements are there. I love that it's already kind of its own thing and its own vibe, and they didn't really change the formula too much because it worked.
I agree with everything you're saying, and I love the episode. I do think as a blueprint in season 1, they stick a little too hardcore to staying in the garage with everybody as like an office comedy. And then in season 2, they began to realize that taking them out and doing stuff with the characters in the cabs is just as interesting. And in fact, in my humble opinion, even more interesting than just watching them in their shenanigans in one location after another. But this formula works for a very good reason because it's perfect. You know what I mean? Like, you know, the writing is going to be good no matter the way they present it.
The other thing about moving away from just the garage and into more as they're picking up fares, it really opens up the show and it keeps it from feeling too stage bound to that one set. And it opens up a ton of possibilities for different episodes. And as you pointed out, whoever is responsible for conveying like the inside of the cab and like the headlights going by and the tracking work of that, it's really kind of brilliant.
Oh my God. Yeah, we're going to get to it more when we see it, I think. But yeah, that poor man's process where it's just a black sound stage and they're shooting a car and like somebody's off camera just rocking the car back and forth and, they're pretending to drive. But if you watch on Taxi, I don't know who the human is, but God bless them. Whoever is running behind them holding the headlights of what is supposed to be the car passing them or pulling up behind them, they're doing the Lord's work, man. It's real good.
Because these are night shift cabbies. So it's always going to be nighttime. So there's only so much detail you could convey through the windshield of the taxi. It just really works really well.
It really does. And, on most sitcoms that are sort of location bound, whenever they go out into the world, we're reminded that they're just in the world like we are. But every time on Taxi, it's always nighttime. And they do a lot of location stuff. They'll eventually, like the B-roll stuff will spill over into episodes where we'll get footage of them on the streets of New York driving the cabs. So the verisimilitude of that is fantastic. And like you said, this is a nighttime world we're in with these people. We get to experience that with them.
So I think those are all good points.
Those are great points. What didn't you like about this episode, HP?
I'm nitpicking a little bit, well, maybe not nitpicking is the word, but the scenario is just a little too unbelievable.
Why did it have to go to Miami? Why they're in New York? Like they'd sit like his first reaction is she's going to Portugal. Well, she has to come through New York. Yes, she did have to go through New York. Just said it in New York. And if they need to do some business with cabs, then, make some traffic-y nonsense. You know what I mean? You're right. It's a stretch to have him drive all that way for the meeting we get. It would have been better, honestly, had they gotten there and the plane had just taken off.
Right. And then he would realize that he missed his shot.
Yeah.
He wanted a reconnect with his daughter and he missed it. He screwed up. That probably would have been more thematically appropriate.
I mean, we get this reunion with these two, which is nice.
It's sweet. And if not for the performance by Hirsch, it wouldn't have worked nearly as well. But I get it. I would have liked to have seen it set up more elegantly. And to your point, it is a little bit stage bound. We'll see. That will change over time. That will evolve.
It's fine for this. You know what I mean? Like, given the amount of information that they have to and do convey and make it entertaining and make it very funny. This show is really funny.
Yeah. These are really top-notch writers. So we're going to grade this on how many yellow lights it should get.
What does a yellow light mean?
Thank you, Jim Ignatowski. We're going to grade it on how many yellow lights. 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. Father Malone, what do you give this episode?
How many yellow lights would I give like father, like daughter? Like 5 is unassailable, right? Like it's the best thing ever.
5 is the quintessential episode of Taxi.
If somebody says, should I watch Taxi? And I go, yeah, watch this episode. That's a 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Then this ain't a 5. This is a 3.
I agree. This is a 3.
This is a really high bar for a 3, but this is a 3 for this series.
3 might sound like an average grade, but we're grading on a curve here. Taxi, these episodes and the writing is a cut above. So it's a very high bar. I'm going to resist the temptation to say, well, maybe a 3.5. We're going whole yellow lights on this. It's either 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Okay. We're not going to quibble and say, 3.25. I'm going to give it 3 yellow lights as well. This is a fantastic introduction. Wonderfully acted, well directed, some maybe finding their footing. Okay, so we're going to give this episode 3 yellow lights.
What does a yellow light mean?
Thanks again, Mr. Ignatowski. The next episode will focus on episode 2, which is called One Punch Banta. But we hope you enjoyed this inaugural episode of Goodnight, Mr. Walters, a Taxi podcast. I am HP.
And I'm Father Malone.
Thank you so much for listening. Look for you next time.
Night, Mr. Walters.
Hello, filthy movie lovers. My name is Gentry Austin.
And I'm Casey Scott.
And we're the hosts of the Sin Syndicate, film podcast for something weirdos, anti-criterion bros, and Joseph Sarno aficionados. Join us semi-weekly as we peer into the adults-only theaters and sticky-floored cinemas of the golden age of sexploitation, when the morals were loose, the laws were murky, and the intercourse was all simulated. Find us now on the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.